The important procedure is this InitializeComponent procedure. The InitializeComponent procedure starts with an attribute. An attribute is a part of your code, and you can add your own attributes, as you'll see far later in the course, that can modify the behavior of any code in your project. So an attribute is an instruction, in this case for the compiler. In this case, what this attribute says is that if we're single-stepping through our code, we should step right over this procedure. Unless you put a breakpoint inside this code, and you'll learn about this when you learn about debugging, you'll never step into this code. And that's fine, because this is code that the designer created for you. So first thing you see here are 3 lines of code which create the instances of the label, text box, and button that you need to see on your form and assign them into the 3 variables that we saw at the bottom of this class. So this code creates the instances of all the controls on the form and assigns them into variables so that we can refer to these objects in code. The next line of code suspends the layout of the form so it doesn't attempt to be doing layout work while it's setting properties of the various controls. Notice next that the code sets the properties of those individual controls, like the location, the name, the size, the tab index, and the text property. Does something strike a bell here? Maybe that the code is only setting properties that are different than the default values of those properties. There's lots of other properties, but we didn't touch them. The only thing that gets set here in code are properties that are different than the default values for the properties. That is, only properties you specifically set. And we did set all those properties for the label, for the text box, and for the button. Now down here, we have properties of the form itself. Some of these we didn't set, but the form designer did for us. You'll notice we add each control, one at a time, to the controls collection of the form. We set a few more properties, we resume the layout of the form, and now perform the layout, which gets things all visually laid out on the screen, and we're done. This code gets run automatically by the base form class when the form gets loaded into memory. You really don't have to ever come here and play with this stuff. It's just nice to know that it's here. Some interesting facts. You can come here and change the code if you want. Change the text of label 1 to enter your name, then go back to the designer. That would be here. And now you'll notice the label's text has changed to match. So yes, you can make changes to the layout here in code, although I'm not sure why you'd want to. Let me give you a warning also. Don't put comments in here. That would be a comment. And expect it to be preserved, because Visual Studio generates this code for you. It even says, do not modify it using the code editor. It can be modified using the Windows Form Designer, and so on. The point is, if you make changes here, changes to properties will get saved. Anything else, layout information, comments, if you want to rearrange the code, your changes will get thrown away the next time the designer generates this code. So be wary, don't make changes in this code editor unless you know what you're doing.